嚟英國玩嗰時呢，我仲有一段喺倫敦嘅錄影呢，我係未製作嘅，仲係喺個手機裏邊。咁今日2年之後先至再重新製作啦。佢哋亦都同我訂咗一間房啊。咁呢個就係遙望，我亦見到英國倫敦市，對住就係個大笨鐘同埋嗰個 London Eye。咁跟住嗰日呢，就係原來我生日，咁佢哋呢就帶咗我第一次去食呢個海底撈。咁呢位哥哥仔應該係喺我哋面前做拉麵，好似好熟手喎。其實呢，如果你係想睇下呢個倫敦嘅特景嘅話呢，最好就係搭雙層巴士喺上層，咁我哋可以睇到佢哋嘅啲新建築物同埋舊建築物點樣混埋一體。英國冇嘢多啦，博物館最多，同埋最主要就係佢哋全部都係免費入場嘅，唔使錢嘅。Yeah. Jane Austen, Pride and Prejudice.你睇下曾幾何時，英國葡劇都好簽有，你睇下。咁呢間呢就係 Albert and Victoria Museum， 就係專係擺 Queen Victoria 維多利亞女王最intimate 佢嘅展覽啦，包括佢細個到佢死嗰刻。全部嘅服裝啊、家具啊，同埋Prince Albert 送俾佢嗰啲禮物啊，同埋佢哋點樣去設計佢哋嘅花園、家居同埋宮殿。兩個咧嚟英國咧，倫敦最主要就係想睇 musicals 啊。咁我就陪咗佢去睇呢個相信都好出名嘅 The Phantom of the Opera。就喺倫敦 His Majesty Theatre 演出嘅，好好睇，我都覺得。雖然我成日都話自己唔係好中意 musical 㗎，不過身在其中又好享受。
your journey. Of course, you can go downstairs, get a drink, bring your drinks upstairs if you wish. Just please make sure all your rubbish and litter is in the bins provided. Next stop, Charing Cross Embankment.
跟住第二日咧，就我哋就一於要上呢個泰晤士河嘅 boat trip，咁就由呢個西敏寺開出發，咁沿途就經過好多倫敦嘅出名建築物啦，或者 landmarks 啊咁樣，個導遊都好好咁同我哋講解。非常之好，極力推薦。
Now, after all that, did anyone on board actually understand the single word of what I've just said? Does anyone speak or understand the language of English? Show of hands, please, preferably all at once. A couple of you. Good to know I'm not talking to myself, I do that another time. The reason I asked, I could point a few of the places of interest out. Would anyone like that?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, well I must forewarn you, I'm not a professional guide, I'm just a member of the crew, so if I do make any mistakes, please bear with me, and I will do my very best to speak as slowly and clearly as possible so any Americans on board can understand. Of course, I'm only joking. Now the first point of interest as we pass through the Waterloo Road Bridge is to our right, the large concrete building with the flashing billboard in the centre. This is our National Theatre, one of London's most premier theatres. It incorporates 3 separate ones within, those being the Dolphin, the Littleton and the 1400-seater Sir Laurence Olivier. That building was once said to be by King Charles the ugliest modern-day building he'd ever seen in his life. He compared it to looking like the back end of a nuclear power station and couldn't understand why they built something so horrific opposite a building as beautiful as this one here to our left, the large impressive one with the green dome in the centre. And it's Somerset House, originally built as a palace for the Dukes and Earls of Somerset. They never actually got to live there though, because they were found traitors to the throne and executed. So it was later converted into the headquarters and administration offices looking down over East River. That's Temple Gate. It's the boundary line between 2 cities, the city of Westminster, which will shortly be leaving, and the city of London, which you are now about to enter. The City of London is one of the smallest capital cities anywhere in the world, measuring in at just 1 square mile, and that archway there on your left-hand side is the westernmost boundary line to it. And then over to our right, you'll see this large red brick building with the spire at the top. Look to the spire, you'll see the letters OXO. Well, you probably guessed it, that's where they used to make those famous little brown stock cubes that make the best gravy in the world.
OXO.
And of course you can get them out of those little silver wrappers. Formerly the headquarters for OXO. Now, laws on the River State, you could not advertise the name of your company or product along the banks. Back here to our left though, you'll see this rather large building site. Now we don't talk about building sites, if you take a look around London you'll see there's cranes and building sites going up everywhere. But this one's rather important to our left. This is one of the many sites along the Thames for the new Thames Tideway Tunnel project. They're building a super sewer right through the heart of London. It's going to be 60 metres beneath the ground and it's going to run for 22 miles. And it's going to replace the current Victorian dilapidated sewage system we have in place today. When that system was first originally built, there was only 800,000 people living in London. Today, there's nearly 12 million. At this point of the river though, we approach a place where there's 3 bridges very closely together. It's in fact the closest of any 3 along the banks of the Thames. The first is the Blackfriars Road Bridge. Now if you look to the tops of the columns, you'll see a different bird underneath each individual column. And these were put here to resemble the different types of fish-eating waterfowl that can be found along the banks of the Thames. The ones on this upper side of the bridge are freshwater birds facing the freshwater source, and the ones on the lower side are seawater birds facing the seawater source. The reason they've been put here is because experts believe that it's at this point where the salt water and the fresh water meet, and it then becomes brackish, which is the type of water we have here in the Thames. The second bridge, the one with the red columns and no top, they're the remains of the first ever railway bridge to span the banks of the Thames, the old Alexandra Railway Bridge, designed by our famous engineer Sir Isambard King of Brunel to service the Chatham Railway line. They took the top of the bridge down because they thought it unfit to support the weight of modern day trains. However, they couldn't remove the columns because it would have undermined the foundations to the final one of the three, which is the Blackfriars Railway Bridge. As we pass through the bridge though, take a little glance across London's skyline. You'll see it's ever changing. All the old historical buildings and places of real character and are being dominated by luxury skyscrapers, office blocks and apartments. The prime example of this, ahead of us here to your right, the large glass structure, the tallest building in Western Europe, the Shard, built to resemble a shard of glass. Standing 1,019 feet high, it's made up of blocks of offices, a shopping centre, various hotels, bars, restaurants and luxury apartments, and also situated right up on the 77th floor is a viewing gallery. Also to our right, the large brown brick building with a tall chimney in the centre. That's the old Bankside Power Station, which 22 years ago was bought up and converted into the Tate Modern Art Galleries. You can go in there and see such magical exhibits as half a cow in a plastic box, an unmade teenager's bed, a light that flicks itself on and off 24 hours a day. 8 years ago, they spent nearly £30,000 on a jar of poo. The building is absolutely free to enter, and after walking around it for about half an hour, you do tend to realise why. And as we approach the Millennium Footbridge, dominating the skyline to our left, a real work of art, the magnificent dome and golden cross of St Paul's Cathedral. St Paul's stands 365 feet high, which is easily remembered for being a foot for every day of the year. The dome of St Paul's weighs 64,000 tonnes and is the second largest unsupported cathedral dome in the world, the largest being that on St Peter's in the Vatican City of Rome. And then over to our right, you'll see this white building with the thatched roof on top. This is the first wooden building to be built in the city since the Great Fire of London, the new Globe Playhouse Theatre. It was the life's work and dream of an American actor and director from Boston who went by the name of Sam Wanamaker. He raised the funds and designed the plans for the project, but sadly he died a couple of years before its completion. So his daughter, the actress, Zoe Wanamaker, you may know her from programmes I Love Her, It's My Family. I think she was also in a few of the Harry Potter films as well. She took over the project, and the Globe, believe it or not, was 28 years old back in November. It's hard to believe it's been there that long. The next bridge ahead of us is the Southwark Road Bridge, the least used and loneliest of all of London's road bridges. But as we approach it, look over to the bottom right-hand corner. You'll see a set of steps that lead down onto a cobblestone causeway. These are famously known as Wren's Steps. That's where Sir Christopher Wren used to walk down daily to board the waterman's vessel of old and then cross over to the construction site of St Paul's Cathedral. They're more commonly known these days as the Southwark Causeway, and there's a royal charter upon those steps on your right saying they can never ever legally be removed. That's why the Southwark Road Bridge that was constructed in 1921 is partly built on top of it. Now to our right as we pass through the bridge, you'll see a small brown brick building with red wooden window frames. This is the anchor of Bankside, one of the oldest pubs anywhere along the banks of the Thames. Parts of that building date back over 400 years. And it was in the original structure where famously Shakespeare and his players used to get changed before going to act out plays in the old Globe, which once stood somewhere behind the building. Continue looking to our right, you'll see a small dock entrance. That is the St Mary Overy dock. And in there, you'll see a black ship with some scaffolding around it. That is a replica of Sir Francis Drake's old galleon, the Golden Hind. That version of the Hind has circumnavigated the world twice, which is once more than the original, following the exact steps that Drake took under the secret order. Burned down during the Great Fire of London. The third bridge was falling down, so we sold it to our good friends, the Americans. Sold for a fee of £1 million, it was taken down stone by stone, then shipped off across the Atlantic to where it now spans the man-made Lake Havasu in the Arizona desert. And continuing to our left, you'll see the yellow brick building. That's one of the oldest buildings anywhere in the city. It's the original Billingsgate Fish Market. There was a fish market famously registered on that site for over 1,000 years, until sadly, a few years ago, in the 80s, the tradition was broken and the fish market was moved further downriver to larger premises in the Docklands area. Just behind that to your left though, you'll see another of London's newest buildings. This weird shaped one that gets wider as it gets taller. That's been given the nickname the Walkie Talkie. It actually hasn't even got a name, it's just known as number 20 Fenchurch Street. But as is commonplace of all the glass buildings here in London today, it's got a viewing gallery at the top. See that large open glass space up there where there's people walking about? That's their viewing gallery. It's a bit different to the others though. This one's called the Sky Garden of London. It's an indoor botanical garden made up of various bars and restaurants, and believe it or not, it's absolutely free to go up. Absolutely free. All you need to do is book online in advance at the skygarden.london. But ahead of us to our right now, you'll see London's very own warship, the C-35, the code name for Her Majesty's vessel, the HMS Belfast. The Belfast was built in the Harland and Wolff shipyard, Northern Ireland, in 1938, and is the same shipyard as the ill-fated Titanic was built. Later commissioned in 1939, she saw many theatres of war. She took part in the D-Day landings at Normandy, the North Atlantic convoys at the Battle of the Atlantic, and also the chasing, shelling and eventual sinking of the German battleship, the Scharnhorst. She last fired her guns in anger during the Korean War, where she was in fact the flagship for the United Nations Army. Then sent to be scrapped by the government, she was saved by the Imperial War Museum. The vessel now stands here today permanently and peacefully moored as a floating maritime museum to naval life at sea, and with 7 wonderful decks of water to explore, she is well worth a visit. Back to our left now though, one of the most historical landmarks anywhere in the world, the Tower of London. That was started in 1078 by William the Conqueror. He actually started the centrepiece, the main tower with the 4 turrets, which is either called the White Tower or the Norman Keep. Following reigning monarchs added to it, and in its time it's been many things: a palace, a fortress, a royal mint, believe it or not, a zoo, but more importantly of course, a place of execution. If you look to the River's Wall on your left, you'll see the bricked up archway with the words "Entry to the Traitors' Gate" above it. That is where traitors of nobility who rode downriver from the old Westminster Palace, which we all know today as the Houses of Parliament, they were taken up through that archway and up onto Tower Hill, Tower Green, but they were later executed, which was more often than not their heads being chopped off. And the next bridge ahead of us, arguably the most famous and photographed bridge anywhere in the world, known as the gateway to the city, the Tower Road Bridge. Completed in 1894 at the cost of just under £1 million and designed by Sir John Wolfe Barry. He actually designed it meticulously in the Gothic style to blend in with the Tower of London. It is a twin suspension and bascule bridge, the only one of its kind anywhere in the world, making it quite a feat of modern engineering even for its time. The 2 centre bascules of the bridge, they weigh 1,000 tonnes apiece and can be raised into a fully upright position in just 60 seconds to allow larger vessels in and out of the upper pool of London. In fact, the Tower Road Bridge is the only one in the world to be registered and insured by Lloyd's of London as a ship, because it requires a crew of a captain, engineer and a mate to man the bridge at all times. But as you can see folks, we're now going to pass through the centre arch of the Tower Road Bridge, and as we do, to our left is our next scheduled stop, which is St Catherine's Pier for the Tower of London, otherwise known as Tower Bridge Quay. Now folks, very importantly, at this point we do now insist that everybody on board the boat, upstairs and downstairs, please remain seated until the boat is safely moored alongside the pier. It is for your own comfort and of course your own safety, especially if you have small children with you. Please now take a seat and remain seated. Or just stand up and do whatever you like, it's up to you. Whilst you are sitting down, take a look at your tickets and I'll tell you a little bit about them and what they allow you to do. Firstly, anyone with tickets for Tower Bridge Quay, St Catherine's Pier or Golden Tours, whether it be single, return or round trip, you must leave the Bowlands area. And this is pretty much where Mr. Barrett and all his friends have been buying up all the old working wharves and warehouses and converting them into riverside apartments. Take for instance the group of buildings here to our right, Butler's Wharf. Now 75 years ago, Butler's Wharf was just a set of rat-infested derelict old warehouses. They were bought up, refurbished and then converted into these luxury riverside apartments. All the lower levels were kept clear though, so they could build a parade of bars, restaurants and cantinas along the veranda there. They're all owned and licensed by one man. He goes by the name of Sir Terence Conrad, the famous designer and restaurateur. Also to our right, you'll see this small dock entrance. That's known as St Saviour's Dock, or Dockhead of Bermondsey. And that leads down onto the River Neckinja, where there's a place called Jacob's Island. And that's famously where Charles Dickens lived during the time he wrote his novel Oliver. He was said to have based a lot of the characters in the book amongst people he met and knew during the time he lived there. That's why a lot of the filming and location work for the movie itself was done around that area. And also, do any of you on board remember the film A Fish Called Wanda? Sure, there. All the old light ridge tugs and barges used to unload and reload their cargoes. But because they're not warehouse conversions, they're even more expensive. For instance, the last part of the complex, you'll see that round flying saucer-esque part at the top. That's all one penthouse. Even the little tiny part at the top of it, that's known as a roof garden, very posh. That was sold 12 years ago for £6.9 million. So God knows what it's worth today. Also to my left, you'll see this little slipway that goes up onto the shore here. This is the old sealed off Wapping entrance to the London docks. Now the London docks used to run all behind this area here on your left hand side, and they were infamously destroyed during the Blitz of London of the Second World War. So over the years, it was also where it originally set sail from before it went across the Atlantic. It left this point here, you see where it says Charles Hay and Sons over there to your right? It left that point there on its maiden voyage to Plymouth to pick up the Pilgrim Fathers. And if you look to the park just next door to that building, which is aptly named Pilgrim's Park, see where those people are sitting on the wall there? Look between them and the wall and you'll see a very old-fashioned lamppost. And next to that lamppost, there's a cast-iron silhouetted figure of a Pilgrim Father and his son. In his son's hand is a book, and in the book are the names of every member of crew that was aboard the Mayflower the day that she set sail from here on her maiden voyage. This is back here to England. And unbeknownst to developers, when they purchased it, it had a grade 2 listing, which means the outside can never ever legally be altered. So what they had to do to get around this is they had to turn it back into what it originally looked like as a mill. They cleaned all the brickwork up on the outside of the building, replaced all the windows and doors. That allowed them to then gut the internal structure of the building out and renovate it into another set of warehouse apartments. But going into view here on your left-hand side, you'll see the entrance to the old Limehouse Commercial Dock and Yacht Marina. No longer used commercially. Today it's just open to recreational river users. You can go into the marina in a small narrowboat, canal barge or a Dutch barge. And then if you pass through the marina, you can join up onto the River Lee. Then, something of about 2.5 weeks to travel from this point here at Limehouse all the way out to the Deansgate Locks in Manchester. Nowadays, if you try to do that, it'll probably take you about 3 years. As on the way up to Manchester through the UK's inland waterways, there are around 250 locks. And these days, next door to every single one of those locks is a pub. Trust me, you can have a fantastic time. But as we do now approach the Canary Wharf development, folks, the places of interest are going to become very few and far between. So at this point what I'll do, just through the trees, you'll see that green onion-shaped dome with a red and white brick building next door to it. The onion-shaped dome, although it's no longer in use, that's the old Royal Observatory. This is where they first spotted Halley's Comet from. And then next door to it, the red and white brick building, that's Flamsteed House. This is where we get Greenwich Mean Time from. If you look to the spire on the top of the building, you'll see there's a red ball at the bottom. Now at 5 to 1 every day, that red ball starts slowly raising to the top of the spire. Then at exactly 1 o'clock, when the ball reaches the top, it will then drop, and that will sound 1 o'clock Greenwich Mean Time. It's the most most visual depiction of time anywhere in the world. And then ahead of us here, you'll see the old naval colleges, no longer run by the Navy. They've been taken over by the Greenwich Universities. This is their largest South East London campus. The grounds are still completely free and open for the public to walk around. If you're not here in Greenwich for history though, and you're just here for something to eat or drink, you won't be hard pushed to find anywhere, so you can have a good time if you really want to find one. Now folks, just to give you some information on the returning boats and the services. There are only 2 more boats returning back upriver today. We are the next one. We'll be leaving here pretty much straight away. So if you do wish to return immediately, stay on board. However, if you want to get off for a short while and have a look around, you are very welcome to do that. There is one final boat in the service after us this afternoon, and that leaves here at 5:10. That's 17:10. Please don't miss that boat, because it is a very, very long walk back. Believe me, I've done it. It's absolutely...
兩三年，但係咧就7、8年前已經咩啦？
佢係咩病啊？跟住我哋回程咧，就會見到喺右手邊咧，就係呢個 Canary Wharf 啊，就係一個以前咧倫敦嘅 Dock 1，即係啲貨船、商船、等船落貨嘅地區嚟嘅。就其實係非常之龍蛇混雜，就好似以前香港嘅西營盤啊，或者係上環。咁後來就好似長江集團啊，阿李嘉誠同埋呢個倫敦嘅 Authority 咧就發展，咁就變咗一個新嘅商業城啦。裏邊有好多嘅銀行啊，同埋呢啲4大公司嗰啲咁嘅總部喺度啦。咁就亦都因為佢呢一個建設咧，就起咗一條新嘅叫 Dockland 嘅，所謂叫做地鐵咧，其實唔係地鐵嘅，因為大部分都係喺open road 上邊嘅，就唔係喺 open ground 嘅，唔係 underground 嘅。 咁大家見到遠望有個三角形嘅建築物呢，就係英國倫敦好出名一座最高嘅建築物，就叫做 The Shard。咁呢個唔係正式嘅名嚟嘅，一時記唔起佢嗰個全名。咁佢就係好出名，就係個建築呢，就十足好似 Lord of the Rings 嗰個 Twin Tower 其中一個好似魔眼嗰個建築物咁樣嘅。咁就你係可以免費上到，好似到某一層，你係可以由上邊望落去成個倫敦市。咁跟住喺呢個畫面右邊，你會見到呢個雙塔嘅橋啦。咁啊，相信大家都知啦，叫做 Tower Bridge。咁就喺18世紀嗰陣時咧，有一個美國好出名同埋好有錢嘅商人咧，就以重金買咗一條叫做 London Bridge， 咁就以為呢個 Tower Bridge 就係叫做 London Bridge。咁嗰條 London Bridge 其實咧就好簡單嘅啫，呢條 Tower Bridge 就冇可能會賣俾你美國佬噶啦。不過佢又唔知頭唔知路，成日都話我要呢條 London Bridge。
Okay, folks, as you can see, we're now approaching our next stop, which is St Catherine's Pier for the Tower of London. Anyone wishing to leave the boat here at this point, take a look around, make sure you do have all your personal belongings, don't leave anything of value behind to spoil your day. This boat will now head upriver to Westminster, so if you are travelling to Westminster, just remain seated. We'll be continuing our way upstream very shortly. Thanks for travelling with us, have a pleasant remainder of your stay here in London.